What is the worst MMO ever? A question which has been asked by Josh Strife Hayes 84 times, and yet he still doesn't have an answer. And if you do manage to get another MMO video to show which isn't done by Big Dog JSH, you still won't get a conclusive result. But if you ask me, I'll tell you without hesitation, it's PAX Day. And it's for good reason too. It was rushed into early access.
Not worried about any of this.
The combat wasn't fully fleshed out.
These things are fucking hardcore.
It's a social MMO without social elements like VoIP. The monetization is questionable at best, and overall it was very bare bones. It was just a UE5 showcase if anything. But admittedly, that was over a year ago and at the very early stages of early access. But in a recent video talking about PAX Day, I was surprised at some of the updates they'd made. And let's not forget such innovations such as adding a compass. Jesus Christ, I didn't realize it was in that bad of a state. And it was at this point I pushed things a bit too far. I'll tell you what, if this video gets 2,069 likes, I'll do a 100-hour review.
We had a good thing, you stupid son of a bitch.
Apparently, it's in my nature to make bad life choices. If I was going to play 100 hours, I was going to set some ground rules. Number 1, no searching the web when I don't know how to do something. If the game's that good, it should be quite intuitive as to how to do it in the first place. Number 2, this is a solo effort. I can't have people gift me stuff to make the game easier for me. The building and crafting must be done by me. Number 3, I must attempt to experience some sort of end game. For instance, PvP or a boss fight. And the last rule and the most important rule, at the end of 100 hours, I must leave a positive Steam review and say something I like about the game. But before we get started, here's a quick word from today's sponsor, who will also be paying for my therapy for playing 100 hours of utter shit. Do you like games that are free? Do you like MMOs?
Oh, yes.
Do you enjoy FPS games? If you answered yes to one or more of these questions, then you have a 100% chance of liking today's sponsor, StarCraft X. Based in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, you and your friends can do PvP and PvE. This game is a unique combination of shooter meets MMORPG. Not only is there in-depth main storyline, there's also side quests which will keep you playing for hours. There's so much to do and so much to discover. You can hunt for artifacts, get lost in side quests, trading, crafting, banditry, and you also have seasonal content like the Back to the Inside Out, a unique PvE experience packed with hardcore raids, savage bosses, and loot worth dying for. Whether you're going in solo or rolling with your crew, Inside Out will push you to the edge, make out alive or lose everything trying. And just recently there was a big update to session battles, which includes a new map, new merchant, unique barter branches, temporary paints, enchants, as well as 2 new game modes, deathmatch and arms race. And if you redeem my special code in game, you'll get a free welcome bonus, which is available for both new players and those who haven't logged in game for a long time. That's enough yapping from me, let's get back to the video. So the first thing I had to do was choose the server I was going to spend 100 hours on. Because of my degenerate lifestyle of playing video games till 2 in the morning, I decided to opt into the US server and just hope that I'd fit in. Hello my fellow Americans, I'm just like you, except for I'm filled with less corn syrup and less diabetes. Anyway, from there was 3 servers to choose from. One which looked dead, one which was RP, cringe.
How dare you say that? I will defend my lady.
And the other one was the legacy most popular one. So hopefully if I joined it, there'll be other players and other things to see and do. Is this foreshadowing? In the last year, the character creator hasn't changed whatsoever. It's still very bare bones and everyone seems to have that gormless UE5 face. So naturally, when playing any MMO, I try and insert myself into the game by making my character look exactly like I do.
Looks like grandma, the fucking thing.
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Why does my guy look so racist? Thankfully, no one else had named their character Blop, so I got to keep my real name. And then I had to choose where on the map I spawned in on. What the fuck is this, Fortnite? I mean, ooh, let's go drop at Faulty Towers. Is that still a thing? Is that still a relevant reference? Anyway, I picked the one in the middle. Ah, that fresh survival smell. You know when you load in and you literally have nothing? Isn't it the greatest feeling in the world?
I'm scared to death. I'm frightened and I don't know what to do. I'm confused and I want to go home.
So I spent the first 5 minutes just getting to grips with the game. Since I last played, they've added a few new features. This includes the ability to run your own market stall. So after a whole year, this MMO, this social MMO, has added an economy. You also have the ability to use some blessings. This will allow you to fast travel back to one single point every hour for free. There's also some crafting buffs, and you have grace, which you gain daily, but you can use gold to buy. I crafted myself a hammer, and what this hammer allows you to do is build your house. But first, you've got to put a plot of land down, and these orange areas are areas which are already taken up by other players. And that's not to say that all these plots are still active. Some are relics from day one when people joined, put their land down, and then never returned. So my first job was to try and find a suitable plot for me to build my homestead on. I was off to a good start. Now, death is a curious thing in this game because when you die, you will respawn at the closest stone and you will lose all your gear. And with that, you have 5 minutes to go back and collect your shit. Yeah, it's not hardcore, but it's close enough to it that it's annoying. Especially if you die in an area which is full of boars, bears, wolves, people, you know, just anything and everything really. So I retrieved all my items, which wasn't much, and then I headed towards the waterfront because I figured if I was going to have a house, I'd have it in a nice area. I also crafted a spear, which let me get my first confirmed kill, a wild boar. And what you are witnessing now is peak combat. This is as good as it gets. And next time, I might even use a clip that actually shows the combat. But this moment was important. Not only was it one of several kills against the boar population, it was also the moment I realised that I'd found the perfect plot of land for my new homestead. So with my hammer in hand, I got to work claiming the plot of land before some other washed up YouTuber comes along and takes it from me. Also, like and subscribe to my washed up channel. Now this is the perfect segue into explaining why there's 3 tiers of access for this game. As you can see, I have claimed one plot of land. Now, you get one plot of land if you buy the basic bitch version of the game, but if you buy the one up from it, you get 2 plots of land. And if you spend all your money on it, spend $100 on this washed up dead game, you get 4 plots of land. Fun fact, I was actually invited to play this game in early access, and because I achieved some sort of goal, they actually gave me the fully fledged $100 version of the game, which I haven't played until this very moment. I'm sure they don't regret that decision one bit. I'm confident a lot of you have played a survival game before, so I don't need to explain that the first thing you need to do is gather basic resources. You cut down some trees, you gather some rocks, eventually you build up your skills so you can build bigger and better things. But the crafting in this game is so fucking bland. They made it so it's RNG as to whether you'll successfully craft the item that you want, which means it can take a really long time and waste a lot of resources when just trying to do basic stuff. And it gets so much worse later on in the game. But there is the caveat that the more skilled you are, the more likely you are to craft the item. So after a while, you'll master the class and there won't be any RNG element. But just wait till later. I don't want to be negative about the game completely, so look at these god rays. Pretty decent. I like this. Even though my character looks like a medieval peasant who got kicked by a horse. The next hour consisted of more chopping of trees and a little bit of exploring and introducing myself to the neighbours. I feel like I've just joined this random guy's like housing estate. I feel like this guy. Oh, all right. Let's do a bet. Let's do a bet. All right. Someone timestamp this. So we are 50 minutes into PAX Day. We've seen 0 other players. My house is quite literally over here. Oh shit. Okay, my house is quite literally like over there, right? So stone throw away from this house. I guarantee you, in 99 hours time, I will never see my neighbor who lives here. I guarantee you, I bet you now. And if I do, I will get him to cameo in the video somehow. But I will tell you now, whoever built this, I'm never seeing him. Ever. Ever. He is gone. Back at the base camp, I'd started to make all the different crafting tables that I'll eventually need. And I kind of fell into this routine of making sure I kept everything I found. I just felt like everything should have a use. So I don't want to like just trash items. If I kill the boar, I'll take everything the boar dropped, which would come in useful later on down the line. This did, however, mean that storage started to stack up, and this would become a problem much later on down the line. But for now, I was managing, I was making stuff, it seemed to be going well. I even crafted a shield to go with my pointy stick. Very cool. With my new weaponry, it gave me more confidence when exploring and allowed me to take on more than one enemy at once. Funnily enough though, you level up in pretty much anything and everything in this game, and I had leveled up in my hand spear. And what this meant was, I haven't a fucking clue, because you have weapons you level up in, but you don't get any extra skills, there's no hints or tips as to what leveling up in these things actually do, it just seems like a thing. Whereas when you level up in any sort of crafting, you unlock the next tier of items, and you make it easier on yourself to craft. If only I could Google the answer. One thing that really does annoy me about this game is the fact that you can't sit down to rest to get your health back. If you want to recover your health, you have to eat food which has a regen bonus, use a spell, or use potions. Right now, I had none of these. So I started cooking all the tasty boars I just killed, which in turn gave me a health and stamina buff. The trick to this game is to make sure that you're constantly eating or drinking food and beverages, because it will increase your base stats. I spent the next couple of hours just gathering material and slowly getting used to my surroundings. Some of the houses around me looked quite impressive, and I felt like I'd picked quite a good spot. It has to be said though, a lot of the houses seemed like they were halfway through construction. Whether this was halfway to being completed or halfway to being abandoned, I'd have to wait a little bit longer to find out. As for the progress on construction of my own homestead, well, I don't mean to brag, but I'd built a concrete floor with a whole 2 chests stacked on top of each other. I feel like those single men who ask like people to rate their setup, and it's literally just like a TV and a chair. That is me. That's how I was living right now. In terms of progress, I discovered copper and tin, which meant I was starting to get into metalwork. I was joining the Bronze Age. And just like the process of collecting wood, it's very boring and monotonous, just like my voice. Truth be told, I felt like after 5 hours, I'd achieved nothing, I'd met no one, and I didn't really have anything to show for my effort. Roll on the next 95 hours. So how far did I get after 10 hours, you might be wondering? Well, I made a cape. This added an extra +2 to my character's overall fun and whimsicalness. I also built a chair, some pillars, and some furnaces, and I smelted all the tin and copper I had collected. Some of you eagle-eyed viewers would notice I have 2 furnaces and not just 1. And you might be wondering, why? Well, the reason is simple. When it comes to smelting metals, you're time-gated.
So dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb!
It's the same with making leather and twine, and it's the same with making charcoal. That's right, it has all the crafting complexity of a mobile gacha game. Another fun system is how you unlock new recipes for crafting. I said earlier, you just simply level up in crafting and it will unlock new stuff, but what I didn't mention was that to level up, it usually means crafting the same item over and over and over, which, as you can imagine, would require more and more and more of the same material, and was sometimes time gated where I'd have to wait an hour to actually get the material I needed. And that, in a nutshell, is the game loop for the next 90 hours. Obviously there's slightly more to that because there wouldn't be a video otherwise, but yeah, it's fucking tedious. I did do a bit more work to my house in the hope they would cheer me up. It didn't, but at least it did start to resemble a house. I originally started with one plot of land, but as time went by, I started to realise that I needed more space to fit all the crafting tables. You can get by with one plot, but it just wouldn't look that nice. It's almost like it's designed to make you want to buy an extra plot and spend more money. So yes, you can now call me 2-plot Andy. I will, however, try to hold on to my last 2 plots so I can do something spectacular with it. I no longer look like a unapproachable Hungarian peasant, instead I look like a very approachable Hungarian farmer. This might come in useful if there's ever a need to be social in this game, but 10 hours in, I hadn't even seen another player. 15 hours in, I was very much into the Iron Age. I could craft iron weapons, iron armor, and an iron pickaxe, although I couldn't craft an iron wood chopping axe, which we'll get to a bit later. To jazz up the video a bit, I've created a new segment which I'm going to call Stats Check. So let's check those stats. Yes, very good stats. Yes, very good. Good stats. Shout out blacksmithing, level 12. Mining, level 17. Weaponsmithing, level 9. Woodcutting, level 19. And that's it from me for stats check. Let's go back to the studio. With my newfound ability to craft iron, I was able to upgrade my outfit and now look like a slightly lower level knight as opposed to a peasant farmer. So I was going up in the world. Visually, at least. I had a basic routine of going around and collecting the same rocks every so often and then doing a little bit of housing. But I did every now and then adventure further out just to see if I could find anyone to talk to. Unfortunately, these expeditions weren't always successful, but sometimes you'd notice buildings moving or changing or just new ones popping up. In this case, a whole block of blocks, in fact, just disappeared. For instance, if we freeze the frame now, you'll notice that there's not a massive column of stone, which there was at the 5-hour mark. Did they delete the blocks themselves? Did they move house? Did they delete their character? It's just very random. It was very hard to explain where all the blocks went. As I said before, I had developed a route that I was doing, where I'd go around and pick up certain materials, mainly the iron nodes, and in fact, I drew this heat map to show you how far I wandered out to get the resources that I need. Here's the local map with my face representing my house, and here's how far I had to wander from my house to get materials. It's safe to say it wasn't overly stimulating. I didn't have to wander that far, there was no need to wander too far away, and the only enemies I encountered were wild boars. There were some humanoids I could fight further up, but they were slightly higher level than me, and it didn't seem worth it at the time. And further out of field were just some wild beasts which were level 25 plus, which I just couldn't cope with. So I had to stay in my lane and just farm locally around my house until I got more powerful. Some would argue this might be easier if I had other people to play with, but there were no other players around. And believe me, I kept checking, but there was no one. Such a lonely day, and it's mine. The most loneliest day of my life. Such a lonely day, should be banned. It's a day that I can stand. Most loneliest day of my life. The most loneliest day of my life. Such a lonely day shouldn't exist. It's a day that I'll never miss. Such a lonely day. and it's mine. Most loneliest day of my life. And if you go, I wanna go with you. And if you die, I wanna die with you. Take your hand and walk away. After 20 hours, I did find somewhat of a significant discovery. A new building had popped up nearby, which can only mean one thing. I had found another player. Now that I'd finally met another player on this godforsaken server, I needed to keep them on this server, so I did the only thing I could think of to make friends. You want free stuff? They said yes, so I took them back to my house where I had a stash of stuff they could have for completely free. It's actually quite annoying because I feel like if this game had VoIP, this whole interaction would have been easier. Don't get me wrong, text chat is perfectly fine, but VoIP just gives you that bit more of a personal touch. I had some excess goods from where I was crafting a lot of items just to level up, so I was more than happy to send them to a good home. Otherwise, I was just dumping them on the ground and letting them expire. It seems like such a wasteful process. I don't understand why there's not an option to salvage items after you make them and get like some materials back. I let them know that I filled the box up regularly with random stuff that I'm crafting, and we said our goodbyes. 30 minutes went by and I was still doing my crafting. Notice all the brass buckles I've made. Clearly, I need this many brass buckles. Anyway, I went to check on my forge when all of a sudden I noticed my friend had come back. But this time he wasn't alone, he brought a friend. And I just thought to myself, this is why you don't feed stray cats. They'll just bring all their friends, keep coming back, eating all your food. But it was okay, because now I'd seen 2 players in this dead game, and that was twice as many as I'd seen in the last 20 hours. Anyway, I said my goodbyes because, do you know what? I had a lot of crafting to do. I was very focused on getting leveled up. So off I went back to my forge to try and level up some more. "25 hours in, I was still crafting. However, on one of my expeditions, I happened to stumble upon the stray cat's house, and it looked a lot better than mine. It definitely made me a bit self-conscious. My house was very much still a work in progress, and I did have a vision for it, but yeah, it did look a bit run down. "30 hours in, I met another human being on the server, who I only noticed because I checked my map, and for the first time in a long time, I noticed a player name right next to me. So I investigated and found a player who looked like they knew a lot more about PAX Day than I could ever imagine. I didn't hesitate to introduce myself, and I got straight to the questions as to where are all the decent materials that I'm going to need. He explained that there were none nearby, and that it was about a 20-30 minute run to where I'd need to go to get some decent materials. He happily pointed me in the right direction, and I had an idea as to where I needed to go. So I thanked him, and off I went on my epic journey in search for greater resources and riches. It was during this adventure that I had an epiphany. The fact that it was going to be half hour to get there and half hour back meant a whole hour would be spent collecting resources far, far away, and I didn't even know if I had the tools to collect the resources. And given that I'd already played 30 hours, it did mean that I could only really do this trip 70 more times. Which sounds like a lot, but when you realise how much material is required to actually craft, it probably isn't that much. I did come across some humanoids, and they looked like they were a higher level than me, so I was very cautious as to how I approached them. So I decided to pick one off and see if I can kill him, and to my surprise, I actually could. But it did take a lot of resources, time and effort. However, if I was to take on any more than one at a time, I would surely be dead. I stumbled across some iron ore deposits, which weren't like the iron deposits near my house. These were a lot more pure, which meant a new material for me to potentially craft with. I wasn't even sure if I was in the right spot, but I marked on the map anyway because this was indeed a valuable material. I had to be careful though because there was a bear guarding these materials. I did try to take one on, but it almost killed me and I was lucky to escape. I did take a short break though to just get a quick look at my surroundings and see if I could find any other civilization nearby. And as pretty as the view was, unfortunately it did confirm what I feared, which was there wasn't really much else out there. Anyway, the sun was setting and I had a lot of material to haul back with me. I had planned to visit Nicholas on my way back and give him some material as a thank you for the directions, but unfortunately I couldn't find him. I also popped by the stray cat house just to see what they had been up to. They had been working well together, however I was still ahead of them when it came to crafting as I had more tables. I'd gone back several times to the rich resource area, avoiding the bears at all costs, and using my blessings to make sure I hoarded as much as possible. I hadn't seen or heard from the stray cats since my last encounter with them, and they hadn't improved their house at all. I think by this point, I just assumed they'd quit the game. With the pure iron I had harvested, I was able to make wrought iron, although I hadn't actually had a use for this yet, so I was just stockpiling it whilst I tried to level up my blacksmithing by collecting normal iron and crafting loads and loads of weapons. The issue was, to get any significant amount of XP, you had to start crafting more complicated stuff, which meant more materials, and it was just a very long and tedious process. If it wasn't for making this video, I would have quit by now. I made some slight alterations to the house. It now had this courtyard for doing leather work, because apparently I also needed to level up leather working in order to make better weapons. There were some low-level humans north of my base who I started to farm just a little bit to get some cash and random materials, but it didn't really drop anything of significance, and honestly, I was more doing this out of boredom than necessity. You might be wondering why most of the video is muted. Well, it's for good reason. I was basically watching videos on my second monitor whilst playing this, and you can still hear the audio over the top of my game because I'm an idiot. So yeah. But the point is, this game was an AFK game. I didn't even need to give it my full attention, and it was just really boring. And it's because of this boredom, I actually ended up going out and trying to go on adventures, but it was really hard to do. The biggest adventure I had was I found a cave, and it was full of wolves. And that was about it. There wasn't anything of great significance in here. Maybe I walked past a boss or something. There were no loot boxes or anything like that. It was just a cave full of wolves. I'll be honest, the cave just felt like a empty asset. I mean, there was some cool stuff to look at, like some ruins that I found, but they were literally pointless. Maybe this bit is still in early access. We were now at the halfway mark with only 50 hours left to go. Kill me now. Despite being 50 hours in, there were still a lot of recipes that were missing particular materials that I hadn't discovered, which meant I had to run from biome to biome looking for anything new to add to my recipe book. One such material was limestone, which on discovery allowed me to build 2 new crafting stations. I had also started to get into cooking, which to be honest was really dumb. I had a lot of meat, I had a lot of vegetables, and yet my girl was too stupid to know there was a recipe where you can combine meat and vegetables. I just couldn't really contemplate it. I had a stack of onions and a stack of garlic, but my guy was like, what do I do with all this veg? What do I do with all this meat? Will they go together? I don't know. I'm only level 4 chef. I'm so stupid. But at the same time, my guy knows exactly how to make strawberry cider. I also started visiting market stalls because I was missing materials. In particular, I needed to know how to make boiled leather, and for whatever reason I didn't have the recipe, and what I could assume was it would be in leatherworking, which I still needed to level up. Stats check. What can I say? Progress was slow. The first couple of levels give you a false sense of security as they go pretty quick, but as you get gradually higher up, I'd say around about level 8 or 9, I saw the shift, where it was just a very long grind. Even though I was level 15 in blacksmithing, because my other levels were too low, I was actually capped at what I could create. Here's a crafting table to give you an idea as to how many resources and how much time it takes to go from level 14 to 15. Even if I was to craft 21 forge parts, I'd need to go out and gather 5,964 ingredients. Once again, I was lucky enough to have a chance meeting with another lonely player. So, in usual fashion, I greeted them and asked if they needed any help. Part of the problem with text chat is that if they're a slow typer, you might just think they're ignoring you. I won't lie, I was a bit impatient, so I waited a minute and then started to leave. Luckily though, he replied just in time, and to be honest, this was a very insightful conversation.
Hi, game seemed pretty dead in this area, glad to see someone else.
We had a little back and forth and I said I hadn't seen anyone in this area, and I offered to gift them something. They said they'd been playing for a day, and they said don't worry about the gift because they probably won't be playing for long. And then the chat bugged out and we couldn't talk anymore. There was no way to communicate with this fellow player. I couldn't see any messages they were sending, and I'm pretty sure they couldn't see what I was sending. And then all of a sudden it started working again, but they were offline. But their last message read that it didn't matter at first that the game was dead. What they wanted to do was build anyway, but it's going to get old pretty fast. I hope they put quests or something in the game at full release. I didn't hear or see from them after that, but it did make you wonder how long out is full release for this title, and would it actually make a difference? Honestly, I don't think it would. I wasn't sure if I was going to include this part in the video, but I feel like it's only fair to be honest and open. But between the 60 and 70 hour mark, I fell asleep. That's right, I fell asleep playing this game. Maybe it was the monotonous tone of crafting the same item over and over again. Maybe it was the world building, the ambience, the songbirds and the wind quietly rustling through the leaves. Or maybe I was just bored shitless. Either way, at some point I fell asleep, got kicked to the main menu, and then, yeah, wasted 8 hours of playtime. After 70 hours, I finally discovered magic. During my adventures when killing all the humans, at some point, one of them dropped a recipe for a jerkin which came with a spell. I remember thinking at the time, this is great, this should change the way combat works. However, I can't use it in combat, and it has a 1 minute 30 cooldown. What the spell meant is that I wouldn't have to wait around as long to recover when farming animals or humans. Instead, I could wait a minute, spam my new spell, and then jump straight back into the action. These bandit camps were designed to have multiple people attack them at once, but instead I was now able to solo them. I cleared several, and in the end, had nothing to show for my effort. I generally thought they'd drop more recipes and I'd get more spells, but this just didn't happen. The more combat I did, the more it just felt really janky and just like it hadn't been fleshed out properly yet, despite the boast from the devs that combat had been updated. So I won't lie, I did die every now and then, and honestly, it was just very demotivating. But the only way to improve was to get better gear, which meant back to crafting, I guess. I was at the point where I wanted to get into endgame, so I was out adventuring, just trying to find stuff. The issue was, a lot of the enemies are still too low level to take on. I had already seen a level 90 wisp on my travels, and had to avoid some very high level bears. I did manage to change zones, or district, but it was just more of the same of what I had already seen. The same biomes, the same housing, and the same player population. Although admittedly, I did see more people this side, they were just all AFK. I did take on some higher up beasts. I killed a direwolf, a bear, some humans, but it's all slow progress and for little returns. The fact is, crafting dominates this game, and the crafting system is awful. You can't even AFK level it, because a lot of the time, items have a max stack, and weapons and armors don't stack at all, which means you need to keep checking back on your activity and emptying your bag. I couldn't find PvP. I remember hearing about it in the alpha, but it wasn't marked on the map. I went looking in the Badlands and other places, but didn't find anything. But let's be real, who's even there to PvP? So for the last 10 hours, I did the only endgame thing I could think of. Finish my crack house. I also saw an opportunity to use my plot of land wisely. Someone had started to build another bridge across the river. And I thought to myself, that looks really ugly and I don't like it. So I took part in PvP. And by that, I mean, I bought a plot of land directly at the opposite end so that they couldn't complete their bridge. Which left me with my next great idea, which was to construct something, leave behind as a memory that I was once on this server. Last time I played, I constructed a giant dick tower, and this time I had a similar ambition, except for this time it'll be more obvious as to what it was. So ladies and gentlemen, I give you my contribution to PAX Day after a whole 100 hours. A billboard that says dead game. Okay, it's kind of hard to make out, but it looks better at night. It might not be the tallest, it might not be the clearest, but it is certainly in the game and it is there for everyone to see. Now, you're probably wondering, what does the crack house look like? To be honest, from the start, I had a vision, and that vision was to recreate Isengard, the big tower in the middle of the forest, just being all mighty and powerful. But unfortunately, there is a build limit, so you can't go that high up. So I just have a crack wizard tower instead. Either way, you'll be happy to know I hit 100 hours, and I have a few pros and cons I'd like to go through. So join me on a tour of my crack house whilst we go through the pros and cons of PAX Day after 100 hours. So I made it to 100 hours. It was certainly a grind, and it was certainly one I didn't enjoy that much. Nonetheless, let's start with the positives. When it comes to the actual look and aesthetics of the game, it is 10 out of 10. I have to say, it is one of the best UE5 looking games I've seen. There is some great use of lighting and assets, and honestly, I can't knock it, I can't fault it. I like the looks of this game. I think the builder is really good in this game. You can see lots of people enjoy using it. They've created some really awesome and creative looking buildings. It is obviously limited by the crafting because of how much you have to do to actually build something decent. But you can see people have enjoyed putting time and effort into creating in the sandbox. And I think they've got the ambience just right. It does feel like a medieval sandbox. And there is a bit of wizardry in there with the spells, but I think generally, with all like the sound and looks and everything, they've captured it really well. But unfortunately, there are more negatives than positives. There's no getting around it, but the combat is just awful. It is too one-dimensional, it doesn't feel reactive in any sense whatsoever. And yes, there are skills, but they're just so lackluster. I was level 28 in Battle Axe, and what that meant for me was I still had the exact same skill that I had from the very start. It just feels mechanically there's no structure to the combat. It was an afterthought after they did all the building and crafting stuff. But I generally think if they improved the combat, made it more in line with a action combat MMO, something similar to New World, then it would actually draw in a lot of players. But as it stands, the combat is just so weak. Who wants to stand there just left clicking constantly and occasionally blocking? It does nothing for the gameplay. And the crafting system is so bad. It is just, once again, it feels like a placeholder which hasn't been fully fleshed out, but they just stuck with it anyway. No one has ever sat there and said, do you know what? I really like this crafting system. It's so much fun. Me sat there making 100 swords, which I have to dump out my inventory anyway, and I can't recycle, does not make a good crafting system. If you want to make it interesting, look at games like Valheim and how they do it. You have to go kill a boss to unlock the next stage in crafting. Maybe something similar could be done for PAX Day. Or as I said earlier, have one big item that you need to craft in order to level up to the next recipe level, but make it an interesting thing that you have to craft and you have to go collect resources for. I think the character development is really bland and boring. In a game like this, why not have it so that you can put points into like swimming or running or, you know, your carry capacity. I don't feel attached to my player in any sense whatsoever because I haven't put any real time into him other than crafting recipes which I could buy of other players or have other people make me stuff. And this goes as far back as the actual character creator. It is so bland and boring. Why should I put 100 hours into a game I do not feel involved in? And as for the spells, they should be character locked, not locked by gear. I think that's just such a stupid idea. And for a social MMO, it is so anti-social. I did play on the RP server briefly, and that was slightly better, but honestly, I don't know how you can call yourself a social MMO without the basic stuff like VoIP or even a player hub. Imagine if there's a central city which is a neutral zone and maybe you can pick up quests from. At least then players will have a chance to interact with each other. Or something as easy as timed events, where people have to work together to take down like a big dragon or something. As much as it is a sandbox MMO, it shouldn't be on the players to create all the fun. And lastly, it needs mounts. We learnt this from New World. You can't have a world where you just run around everywhere. It's not realistic for one, it breaks immersion, and it just makes everything a long drag for no apparent reason. There's no open world PvP, so what does it matter if you have mounts and run past each other? There's a lot of other stuff I can nitpick, but I think those are the core points that need addressing. And the thing is, the development of this has been so slow. It got rushed into early access, and as the guy said earlier, they're waiting for full release, but when's that even going to be? No player is going to want to stick around and play this game when the whole world just feels very abandoned and dead. Even on weekends, this game has no population. 388 players in the last hour across all those different servers on a big vast open world, and guess what? You're not going to see any of them. Even on day one of release, it didn't have the highest population, and now it's lost about 90% of that. But as promised, I said I'd leave a positive review, and here it is. Had the best night's sleep in a long time playing this game. The lack of players and relaxing ambience really means I can feel like I'm camping in the woods on a warm summer's night with no one to disturb me. 10 out of 10, would recommend if you struggle with sleep. But that's it from me in my 100-hour review of PAX Day. By all means, let me know in the comment section below what you think, and maybe suggest another title I should go and play for 100 hours. And please, for the love of God, like this video. It took me over 100 hours to make. And if you do want to support the channel, by all means, feel free to become a YouTube member or a Patreon member. You get different benefits depending on which one you choose. Anyway, catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.